Hey Bat fans, Luke here back with another installment for Batmas 2020, and today we're going to take a look at a story I'm really excited to talk about, and that is Harleen. Harleen was one of the early Black Label releases. It was a 3-issue story, and it is written, drawn, I think pretty much everything by a creator name, and no one really knows how to say the first name, but I'll just go ahead and I'm assuming Stefan Sajic. And Sajic, you might be able to recognize that name here and there. He did some art for remember Dark Knight's Metal, the original, the tie-in were kind of off to the side. Kind of had his art in there. I think a lot of you, if you're an Image Comics fan, the series called Sunstone. So the name might ring familiar. And again, he pretty much does everything here. But this, in essence, is literally a strictly Harleen Quinzel, Harley Quinn story. Now, you do see the collected trade in this, as you see in front of you. I did also get this series in floppies as it was released. And just to tell you how much I enjoyed this series, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about my trade buying habits. And I'm not going to go too far down the rabbit hole on this, but just to prove the point how good this actually was. Trades, I typically only double dip on Batman. Anything the main Batman stuff, I get it. Like Tinian's run right now. The Joker War. Yes, I just ordered the hardcover for that. So that's pretty much given. The main stuff that I think kind of has some impact, like Dark Knight's Metal. Yes, I double dipped on that, and I'll probably do the same thing with Dark Knight's Death Metal. It's just the way I kind of keep my trades with kind of historical perspective, but either way, it's pretty much Batman. One of my favorite characters out there, like Red Hood, I do not double dip. Just get the floppies. Nightwing, just get the floppies. So you get the gist. This is pretty much the exception to the rule of a story where I actually double dip. Like I said, Walking Dead, I just collect the trade. I don't even get the floppies. This is how good I thought this was. Is I actually double dipped on this story in particular. Just to give you again the common picture of how good this thing is. And this, in essence, is a story of Harley, and just again, kind of give you a little bit. I gotta take the dust cover off here. But look how cool this cover is. So you get this kind of dust jacket where you get that, and then underneath, this is really what it looks like. So I will say it's kind of like a plastic cover, so it's kind of got to be careful when you're flipping through. I don't want that to rip. So, but this, in essence, again, it is a quintessential story of Harley slowly falling for the Joker. Is this the origin story? Well, if you look at anyone else, someone will tell you that, the true origin story for Harley Quinn is in the story Mad Love, and you're seeing this in trade, but really it's, if you're not familiar with their character, the origin for her is actually found in the animated series. But the episode sort of done here in comic book form, collected here, and I have this in this nice hardback. It's a pretty decent buy. If you see it, I recommend getting that. But this, in essence, is a quasi origin story for Harley, and it opens up where she is a kind of up and coming psychiatrist who kind of carries some baggage with her. In that, when I say that, it's more of the stigma in society, how she's being treated, where she actually had an affair with one of her professors in college, and that got around a little bit. So as she's trying to kind of come up in this world where she's actually known as a talent, but it's kind of like she's sort of, there's rumors going around that's kind of tarnishing her reputation a little bit. But she's kind of coming up with this angle, this project where she's kind of using empathy in a way to kind of help reform criminals. And in order to do that, she has to have this big project, and who ultimately funds this project, what gets her in the foot in the door, is actually through Bruce Wayne. And you're going to see a dichotomy kind of progress through the story between the bad people in Gotham, the villains in Batman, and obviously Joker and all this. And it's executed really well in kind of like the entry part of the story, where she's kind of talking about these dreams. And there's something you'll see a lot in the story, is that how she's like mentally coping with the environment she's in, and obviously with the Joker character. And a lot of it just comes down with, you know, Batman is kind of like the central figure in some of it. And just the symbolism throughout in the story is so good. And I just thought it's kind of interesting that ultimately it comes down to is that Batman is the person who, Batman via Bruce Wayne, is the person that gets Harley's foot in the door, which ultimately leads to her descent as a character into madness and deception and manipulation. I just thought that was really well done throughout the story. But that's her general gist, and she's going through and she's interviewing these characters. She needs to find the perfect candidate to kind of get this project through the door, and she's meeting with everybody, but you realize the main one she really probably should get after is the Joker. And again, the art throughout is just the storytelling, the way it's done, the double page splashes, the single page splashes, the way sort of panels are kind of laid out in this. It's just a visual treat. You do see her ultimately, like I said before, she's talking to people, Zaz, Ivy, who she kind of gets some sympathy throughout toward the end, which will kind of come together. The Riddler, you actually have Killer Croc, Mad Hatter, but again, the one she really kind of wants to get with and really try to use her technique with is the Joker. And the way this is kind of told throughout the story is that many people tried to get inside the brain of the Joker and try to help. Hugo Strange, who's kind of like the director of Arkham Asylum in here, mentioned they had 6 people before, and there's actually a book that kind of Harley references initially on. Was one of those 6 psychiatrists that worked with the Joker, kind of came up with an initial hypothesis in it. But she ultimately comes to the fact that, again, she feels that, you know what, there's got to be a way I can connect with him. And I can connect with him, I can help him. So you see a redemption kind of angle with her in a way to kind of help the Joker reform. Again, using kind of this thing of empathy that you actually see that theme kind of woven throughout in this story. And the one thing that really delivers it is Harvey Dent. The Harvey Dent, who ultimately does become Two-Face in this, is kind of like a subplot that as you're reading through it, you're not going to think it means much. But I will say pay attention and kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I'm not going to really spoil it to a degree. But I will say it's an important sub-story that, again, that Sajak does excellently as he kind of weaves that theme throughout this story. And while initially Harvey tries to stop Harley, and the reason being is that he's kind of like the anti-empathy stance to Harley's empathy kind of approach, in that he feels, again, as the district attorney here, that if her research and her kind of approach is ultimately proven successful, all those crazy people, all those bad criminals, once they're brought in charges, you're going to have all these lawyers arguing for empathy, that they can be reformed. And it's kind of just computing that it's going to get just that revolving door that you always hear in Batman stories throughout, is that, you know, why someone won't make the decision to really put down these criminals because you send them in Arkham or you send them in Blackgate. It's not more but a revolving door. They go in, they go right back out, and the cycle continues. And that is Harvey's stance to this. But again, Harley is steadfast in her approach. And again, all this is going on, but you can't lose sight of the fact that this story really is the slow decline and the falling of Harley to the Joker. Oops, sorry about that. Joker manipulating Harley to the point, again, it's just that I'm having trouble trying to say what it becomes, but she's falling for the Joker, and it's mental. And there's a little clue initially in this story that as you're reading it, you're going to initially say that don't make sense, or you think it's kind of trivial, but it also becomes a huge part in the twist at the end, whereas there's a guard in the inside that's kind of giving Joker information, and then he gives actually a file that you initially think it's a file on Harley Quinn, but again, just kind of keep that in the back of your mind as you're kind of reading it, because ultimately it comes down to is there's a twist in it that actually becomes really, really important. But again, this is as you kind of see the symbolism, you just see the slow demise of Harley, that she can't, just the effects of the Joker on her and that relationship that slowly evolves. She can't eat, she can't sleep, she comes subsumed with kind of alcohol to get her to cope, and it's again just that slow manipulation. And here's actually we actually see a sort of revision of Harvey Dent's Two-Face transformation. But basically what it comes down to, again, at some point, that connection between Dr. Quinn and Joker, where you evolve, you see the small little seeds of that transition happening with Joker asking Harley to refer to him as Mr. J, and it's just done masterfully. But it comes to a point where the manipulation has gone so strong in the way that ultimately Joker plays Harley in this, and he plays her. Don't fake the funk. Joker plays her, and that kind of is a theme that kind of continues wherever you see those Joker Harley stories, especially early on in Harley's introduction, is that you now start to see kind of like a seduction in a way, where now Harley, it morphs into now a more of a physical connection now, rather than that doctor-patient connection to it, where now during their private sessions, Harley, in a way where it kind of opens up, is that she wants to take off the straitjacket to kind of get that, again, that build that trust between the two. But again, it's that slow seduction that happens throughout this story, and you start to see again the relationship start to hold, and it builds on from there. Again, just the way that, just how much the Joker has a hold on the mental health of Harley. And again, you think about it, and that's just how ironic it is. This is a psychologist trying to help someone, but ultimately that's the person that she's trying to help is actually having an opposite effect on her, which is just masterfully done throughout. It's just, you just see the mental anguish of Harley throughout. And like I said before, she tries to keep kind of a buffer where that's kind of flirting ultimately, but ultimately it comes down to, again, it gets to a point where she can't help herself, and that you see her actually dress up, and then it goes on from there. So you actually see, again, the art in this is just beautiful, but it's really masterfully done by Sajak. And again, it's just a slow demise of a person that starts off with great intentions, means well, but again, the Joker has his effect on people, and he manipulates, and he can bring even the best person down to this type of level. There is a other kind of woven theme that kind of ties in with Harvey Dent and Two-Face in this, with this group called the Executioners, that plays a huge part into the finale of this story. And again, I don't want to ruin too much, but there's one thing that Harley says that you need to pay attention early in this story, is that it's an interaction between the Joker, Harvey Dent and Harley, where she both says, at some point we will both be murderers. And you kind of get the gist from looking at it from a Harley Quinn perspective now, but it's a small little kind of seed that Sajak plants early on in the story, which actually turns out to be a huge part in the actual execution of the story, which again, I don't want to sit there and ruin the twist on that. But again, when it comes down to, I shouldn't even showed that. But it's something else, which you'll see. But you see ultimately when it comes down to the ending, where I think Cedric does a really, really good job of kind of showing Batman kind of wrapping everything else all together, and how ultimately this fall, this person could be actually his fault. But it just shows, I'll just say Sajak does a really good job wrapping everything else together throughout. I'm leaving a lot of meat on the bones on this, because I'm going to say, again, this is just a fantastic story. Do I consider this, because some might argue, and I think I actually did like a top 11 or 10, whatever I did, Black Label titles I was getting. I kind of ranked them 1 to 11, which one's my favorite. This was up there, that's my favorite. And I think I might have said something to the effect of, this is, or could be a canon origin story for Harley Quinn. Do I still believe that? And I think I kind of wasn't very definitive in that statement. I'm going to say portion of this can be. The only thing I think that kind of prevents my stance, and don't get me wrong, again, I am not discrediting by any means either the animated story series or the comic origin interpretation for Harley Quinn. Not at all. But it kind of like a modern perspective, it could. The only thing that's going to sit there and pull back for me, making this kind of like my full endorsement, yes, this is like a canon origin story for Harley Quinn, is that the whole origin with Two-Face doesn't necessarily align with either the classic Long Halloween, or even most recently in the Batman and Robin and New 52 interpretations. So just a portion of the story kind of prevents that from making it full-blown canon. But I think if you take that Two-Face part out of it, absolutely. What this does, what this doesn't really do, because again, you gotta look at this from a TV show's perspective. You got 30 minutes, not really TK. You got like 20 minutes to kind of give an origin here. But this gives you 3 exercised issues to really flesh out the origin story. And what this does really well in that is that this takes this perspective, but elaborates on it a lot more, gives it more depth. So yes and no on the origin perspective, but still I think if you take that Two-Face part out of it, yeah, absolutely. I believe this could be kind of like a supplement to the origin of that. So I think these almost kind of go hand in hand in a way. Do I recommend this? Yeah, absolutely. I'm not even going to fake the funk on this one. Get this. This nice hardcover, that nice slipcase. This is only $30. Only $30. Readily accessible. I'm pretty certain. I don't know about getting the single issues. Maybe you should be able to. But either way, on trade, absolutely. I'm going to say this, and I don't say it very often. 5 out of 5. This was perfection. The only thing that kind of turned me off a little bit in this story is the Joker. the way Sajik kind of he just seems, the body, kind of the style, doesn't necessarily match to me what I think, what normal people interpret as like the body type of the Joker. Beyond that, though, that's just, this story's so good I'm looking past that. 5 out of 5. Definitely recommend. Highly recommend. Get out there and get it. You will not be disappointed by this story at all. Awesome read. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Harleen. Hit me up in the comments below if you read this. Would love to bat chat about that one. And we will go from there. So, until next video, take care.